Let's explore this further now and speak to Professor Bheki Mngomezulu from the Nelson Mandela University Center for the Advancement of Non-Racialism and Democracy. Prof, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. Let's just start here. You of course listened to what we heard last night from the president of the ANC saying that they would prefer a government of national unity. Subsequent to that, we then saw mixed reaction. The EFF, speaking about the fact that it doesn't support this if it includes the DA and the FF+. I wonder then, in your view, what posture does the ANC need to take into these conversations?
Thank you very much, my sister, for having me, and good afternoon to your viewers. First of all, I must say that this particular discussion is very difficult for all parties, including the ANC, because unlike in 1994, when the ANC was arguing from a strong position, having won the election convincingly, this time around the ANC is starting from a weak stance, given the fact that it only got 40.2%. So basically, it cannot dictate terms at this stage. But the idea itself is a correct one, the government of national unity, except to say that some parties will still feel that because on the sideline, you still have those 26 aggrieved political parties, that some of them might feel that in fact they won the election. So in that case, the issue of either coalitions or the government of national unity does not arise if that is the case. The problem is that the results have been announced and then we're faced with the situation. The position taken by the EFF is a very tough one for the ANC, because if they say they are willing to participate on condition that the DA is not part of that, and then, of course, the Freedom Front Plus is not part of that. So basically, it means that the ANC might be forced to go ahead with the government of national unity, which excludes the DA. Which excludes the EFF. Lastly, there was a concerning statement towards the end of President Ramaphosa's statement yesterday, when he said that we will isolate those who want to cause chaos. The question is, who are those, and how to go to discussions having already made a decision on a particular matter? Those are some of the concerning issues.
And staying with that particular concerning issue, when you look at what they've had to say in the lead up to yesterday about the MK party and saying that they are blue ticking them, and then in the afternoon we hear from the MK party that in fact there were overtures that were being made, but now a meeting is going to follow and they will then keep an open mind when they go into this conversation. Looking at these two parties, are they too far apart to find common ground?
Ideally, the MK party and the ANC are not supposed to be too far apart. But what is causing the schism between the two is the fact that on the run-up to the election, some insults and then, of course, some very concerning statements were made by the leaders of the ANC when they were canvassing. I had made a suggestion that the campaign of the ANC should be very simple, the simplest one, in fact, compared to all other political parties. Because I was saying that all the ANC needed to do was to say, over the past 30 years, this is what we've been able to do. And then number two, these are the things we've been unable to do, and these are the reasons why we failed. And then lastly, going forward, if you were to give us a fresh mandate, this is what we're going to do to finish the job, and this is the plan in place. And forget about talking about former President Zuma, MK this, EFF this, DA this. They were not supposed to do all of those things. That is why it's so difficult now for the ANC to touch base with the MK party, given what they've done before. Ideally, what they were supposed to do, one of the guys I was talking to yesterday, in fact, said maybe it's time for them to forget about approaching things through the Western way of doing things and then go back to the traditional way of doing things. If you have made a mistake, all you do is you find a person who is neutral, you send the person to the MK party and say, these people say that they are sorry about everything that they've done. Let us put all of these things behind us. Let bygones be bygones, and then let us chart the way forward. That is the best approach they could do. That is why they were blue-ticked. It's because of what they did before and during the campaigns, and therefore it means that it's one person who left to swallow or eat the humble pie, and then once that is done, then they can go back to the table, because there are many things that bring the two together. They are more like terms than there are differences.
So, Prof, I want us to, just quickly answer some of the questions that people would have about the composition of Parliament, given some of the seat allocations that we've seen. And if we can put up that graphic there, that is showing us at a national level in the National Assembly, how then are things expected to unfold. You can see there that the ANC, of course, having 159 seats, the DA 87, MK 58, EFF 39, IFP 17. And these are some of the parties here, the PA at 9 and all of that, as you can see. So one then would ask the question, when we look at the composition of the National Assembly, what does it tell us? Because in the past we saw an ANC that had a majority and was able to then, in some of the cases, use it to its own advantage. With this composition, what happens?
Gone are those days, my sister, when one party will be calling the shots. With these numbers, all it means then is that one, the ANC cannot run the government alone, because for that to happen, you need a 50+1. 50+1 in this case means that because the National Assembly has 400 seats, in this case, you would need 201 seats, which then the ANC doesn't have with 159, even though it is in the majority. Neither can the DA, neither can the MK party, and the same goes to the other political parties. What this means, therefore, is that there will be balance of forces in a way, in the sense that you would have a legislature that is made up of different political parties, none of which has a final say. Like we saw in the past, there have been times when the ANC would say, don't worry about this motion, it is going to pass because we have the numbers. This time around, it's going to be totally different, because you still have to deal with the DA, you still have to deal with the MK party, you still have to deal with the EFF. And chances of you getting a 2/3 majority on very critical matters is not difficult, it's impossible.
So when we then look at the composition of, some of the provinces, and I'd like us to look at Gauteng as well as, KwaZulu-Natal, because there as well, we are seeing quite an interesting picture that is emerging in Gauteng. For example, the ANC with about 28 seats, the DA 22 seats, EFF 11, MK at 8. And then you look at KwaZulu-Natal, because this is where the MK party got most of the votes, but could not win an outright majority there in the province of KwaZulu-Natal. Now, Prof, when you look at these two provinces, do they then also suggest that these current conversations that could be taking place at a national level when it comes to governing, they could trickle down to the provinces, or could we see the provinces do their own thing?
Ideally, it would work best if whatever deal that they clinch would also translate into provinces. But the problem is that in Gauteng, we have the ANC being the majority. Nationally, we have the ANC being the majority. So it means that it's easy to use the same deal that would have clinched in the government of national unity, or whatever type of working together that you come up with. You can then apply that at a national level, and then apply the same also in Gauteng. Then you might also do the same maybe in the Eastern Cape and other provinces where the ANC is the majority. But when it comes to KwaZulu-Natal, ideally you would want the MK to be given the first opportunity to decide who it wants to work with. Say, for example, if these quote-unquote sour relations between the MK party and the ANC would then mean that whatever decision they make will be informed by those relations. In this case, it's obvious that the MK party will have to work with the IFP, then the deal is closed. You don't need the ANC in that case, you don't need the DA. They can still be part of the collective, but then, of course, in terms of governance, we'll be working with the MK and the IFP. So they might decide to do that, because there the ANC does not allow a voice compared to the two parties, that is the MK and the IFP.
All right, Prof, thank you so much for your time. Do appreciate it. Of course, quite a lot to be said about some of these conversations, and it begs the question, how then and which, direction do these conversations take, especially when you listen to some of the political parties who are saying, take the posture of humility because there is no outright majority. Others are saying that we do have the numbers, so we should be the ones that kind of dictate the terms or even have the first bite when it comes to how things that unfold in terms of governance. So it'll be interesting to see then what happens there with this one. That was Professor Bheki Mngomezulu there, and he is, of course, with the Nelson Mandela University Center for the Advancement of Non-Racialism and Democracy.